In 2026, the world woke up to headlines it had been warned about for decades. Missiles over the Strait of Hormuz, warships in the Persian Gulf, and a nation of 90 million people suddenly standing at the edge of war. But here is the question no primetime anchor dared to ask out loud. What if this war was never really about nuclear weapons? Iran sits on approximately 157 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, the fourth largest supply in the entire world. Beneath its soil lies enough crude to fuel the planet for years, and flowing past its coastline through the Strait of Hormuz moves 20% of all the world's oil supply every single day. 20%. If you wanted to control the global energy market, and by extension, the global economy, there is no single choke point more valuable on this planet than that one strip of water, just 38 miles wide. Now ask yourself one question. Who benefits from controlling it? The official reason given for the escalating tensions of 2026 was Iran's nuclear program, REGIME, aggression and regional destabilization. Those were the words used, but intelligence analysts, oil economists, and geopolitical historians have been quietly telling a very different story. One that does not make it onto the evening news. Look at the pattern of American military intervention over the last 70 years. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Libya, Syria. Every single one of those conflicts, without exception, had something deeply in common. It was not just ideology. It was not just the spread of democracy. It was geography, specifically. Geography that sat on top of, or directly beside, something the global economy could not survive without. Iraq had oil. Libya had oil. Iran has oil. Call it coincidence, or call it a playbook that has been used before. Here is a fact they do not teach in most schools. In 1953, the United States and Britain orchestrated the overthrow of Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. His crime was straightforward. He nationalized Iran's oil industry. He tried to give Iranian oil back to the Iranian people. Within months, he was forcibly removed in a CIA-backed coup, codenamed Operation Ajax, and replaced with a Shah who was fully loyal to Western oil interests. That was not ancient history lost to time. That was a documented, declassified, confirmed operation. The CIA admitted it in writing in 2013. So when world powers today speak about regime change in Iran, understand what they are really saying. They have done this before. They know exactly how it works. And the last time they did it, the prize was identical. Now here is where the story becomes truly unsettling. In 2021, Iran signed a 25-year strategic cooperation agreement with China, estimated to be worth $400 billion, with oil sitting at the very center of that deal. That single agreement threatened to reroute the entire energy economy of the Middle East away from Western control permanently. Iran has also been actively moving away from dollar-denominated oil transactions, what economists call petrodollar trade, the very foundation that has kept the United States dollar as the world's reserve currency since 1974. Every nation in recent memory that attempted to sell oil outside the American dollar system, Iraq under Saddam Hussein, Libya under Muammar Gaddafi, ceased to exist as a functioning government within years of making that decision. These are not conspiracy theories. These are documented geopolitical events, connected by a thread that only becomes visible when you follow the money and not the missiles. So who exactly wants this war? Not the average American, not the average Iranian. Polls consistently show that ordinary citizens on both sides want no part of armed conflict. But weapons manufacturers and defense contractors, whose stock prices historically rise during military escalation, have a very different answer. Energy companies, waiting to re-enter Iranian markets, locked out for decades by international sanctions, have a different answer to end. Certain governments in the region, who fear Iranian influence and want its power permanently broken, have been lobbying, funding, and quietly cheering from the sidelines for years. War is never simply a military event. It is always, without exception, a business decision made somewhere far from the battlefield by people who will never hear a single shot fired. The only question worth asking is whose business and at whose cost. Behind every barrel of oil, behind every geopolitical calculation, behind every war game played in marble buildings with mahogany tables, there are people, mothers, in Tehran, who simply want their children to reach school safely each morning. Farmers in Khuzestan, whose land sits directly above oil they will never own and never benefit from. Young soldiers on every side who will carry the weight of old men's decisions in their bodies for the rest of their lives. History has a cruel and consistent habit of remembering the names of generals and politicians. It rarely, if ever, remembers the names of those who paid the real price. So is the 2026 conflict with Iran about nuclear weapons. Possibly, partially. Those concerns are real and they are documented. Is it about regime change, the historical evidence, and a pattern stretching back 70 years? Says almost certainly yes, but is it ultimately about oil, about who controls the energy arteries of the modern world, about preserving dollar dominance, about locking China out of a partnership that would shift the global power balance, about ensuring that no nation can independently decide what happens to the resources beneath its own soil? The answer, if you follow the money and study the history honestly, is deeply uncomfortable, because it means the most powerful forces shaping human conflict are not ideology, not religion, and not even hatred. They are pipelines, they are tankers, they are numbers on a balance sheet. And somewhere in a boardroom that never appears on the news, someone already knows exactly how this ends. History belongs to those who ask the questions others are afraid to. You just asked one. Share this with someone who still believes war is simple. Subscribe, because the most important stories are never the loudest ones. And remember this, above everything else, the first casualty of war is not the soldier. It is the truth.